welcome everyone to the CSG podcast. This is the first sort of Crazy Stupid Genius podcast we've done. I've got an amazing guest who I'll introduce in a second. The main objective of the CSG podcast is just to basically really sort of check in and check the pulse of the mental health, mental wellness of the advertising, marketing and creative industries basically, because I don't think too many people are doing it. And there's quite an epidemic of sort of mental health issues within those industries. But moving on, my very first guest, he's been kind enough to let me come into his office, brand new office, is Ben Somerville, founder of Farsiight, probably one of the fastest growing agencies in Brisbane in my mind, and one of the more forward-thinking or most forward-thinking agencies in Brisbane when it comes to the sort of mental wellness and mental health of their employees. I see you guys, you and your brother Josh, as almost like the new guard of agency owners coming through who don't have the stink of dogma from agencies past, you know, in the last couple of decades, where it's been more churn and burn and a lot more burnout and things like that. So thank you so much for,
not a problem.
for being here.
Very much appreciate the kind words. That's a pretty big wrap to get things started. Look, we certainly don't have all the answers, but we're definitely trying to give it a good nudge here for sure.
Yeah, you guys are doing an amazing job. So I guess it's a big, hairy question to start with, but what does mental health mean to you? Mental wellness?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think because of a lot of my life, like for the people who know me quite well, I'm quite naturally disposed to be like a happy guy. Like it takes a fair bit to rock my boat. And I think it's not until times where I've gone through particular things in my life, be it work related or non-work related, that have put stress on my mental health that have made me, I guess, really critically think about, I guess, what that question is. But having gone through a couple of episodes in my life where my mental health hasn't been too great, it makes me realize how important it is above all else. And it's something that needs to be prioritized, not just at times where things are bad, but outside of that, things need to be done on a consistent basis to kind of build that fortitude around your health and kind of like safeguard that mental space. So a bit of a long-winded answer, but I'd say like mental health is an incredibly important thing for myself, and something I pay a lot of attention to on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis.
And being a business owner of a rapidly growing agency, like if your mental health isn't, if you're sort of not keeping that in check, that then filters down. It can filter down throughout the rest of the agency, right? So it can have a massive impact.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, as the leader of the business, you've got to front up every day with a smile on your face during the good times, the bad times, and all the challenges that sort of happen in between as well too. So there's no doubt about it that like days that if I'm feeling down or struggling as well too, it can be hard to keep that up coming into work every day. So I've almost got like a responsibility as a manager and as an owner of this business to take care of myself and my mental health so that I can come in and be the leader that the business needs from me day in, day out.
Yeah, but also if you're not having a great day, I would imagine you'd be more than willing to say, hey, I'm not having a great day here.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something
that leads by example.
Yeah, it's something I think meeting you guys and the guys at Trademark have opened up those conversations for us internally here at Farsiight. It's certainly from day one, it wasn't, I think, as much of a cornerstone of our culture, being able to have those open conversations. But it's something that since then, it's very much become a part of, I guess, our DNA, being openly able to come into work and just be like, hey, I'm actually not having a good week. And, you know, we've got some things that we've put in place kind of off the back of that as well too, like personal check-ins on a Monday where our team will come in and kind of rate how they're feeling personally on a scale of 1 to 10, work-wise 1 to 10. So it just creates that general awareness that, you know, the person sitting next to you is actually having a bit of a crap day or a crap week, and there might be something going on in their life. So, you know, if you see them, they're not too happy, you've got some of that added context to go up and start that conversation. So that's been it's been really, really helpful for us as an agency to kind of broach and have those conversations.
And that's huge in terms of like where the industry's been in the past. Like those conversations just would not have happened, and a lot of like agencies will still not ever have those conversations in terms of being or encouraging employees to be as vulnerable as possible in front of their co-workers, to sort of let them know personally how they're going.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it all starts from the top. So I think by, Josh and I kind of leading that charge from the front and having those open conversations and being vulnerable, I think allows the rest of the team to know that they can come in and very much do the same as well too. So
awesome. So for like an industry that's so stacked full of incredibly smart people, I think I don't know the quote, but there is a quote out there somewhere that says the level of intelligence within advertising, marketing, and creative industries is the same or equal to most sort of STEM industries in the world. But I guess specifically within the creative space in advertising and marketing, there's so many creative people. Why do you think there's been so little sort of safety nets put in place to catch people when they do ultimately burn out in this space or have mental health issues within this space? Because the reason I bring that up is because there's been 2 studies in the last 2 years. One was pre-COVID, one was during COVID. So you've got a bit of a control there. And they both were very clear in the data, the data was very clear in saying that rates of depression and overall sort of poor mental health is far higher than the majority of other industries in the world. So just curious to know why you think that would be.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think in the agency space specifically, I think the business model has a part to play in that. So you break down what an agency is offering to market at the end of the day, and it's like IP on one hand and the other is hours, right? So that's the widgets that we sell to market is hours. So I think where a lot of the burnout, a lot of the depression that can happen, and that is largely like the stigma of agency life is like, oh, I'm going to go work for an agency, I'll probably end up getting worked to the bone, is because of that whole unit economics of they're selling hours. So if the agency can push more hours out of someone, they're going to make more money, right? So I think that's largely where this comes from, is there's like a workload that is put on people within these creative service agencies and agencies in general that is over what is actually realistic that someone can do in a particular period of time. And look, you work 10, 12-hour days, day in, day out, over an extended period of time in like the high pressure environment that is agencies, where there's deadlines every single day. And of course that's going to have an effect on your mental health, regardless as to how like strong your mental fortitude is.
And let's face it, it is a young person's industry.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
So if you're not capable or don't, let's say in the past, if you weren't capable or didn't want to work those longer hours and put the work in and sort of party hard, work harder. Yeah. Someone's right up there, right behind you, ready to take your place.
100%.
But I think that's changing, and I think you guys are sort of a leading sort of light in a sense of how that's changing.
Yeah, and I think the change is coming from both ends as well too. Like, we're definitely trying to create change in the market with the way that we run our business, but I think we're also influenced by what the market wants. Like, we've got a very young team for the most part in terms of our spread. We've got mainly millennials, and which is the category I fall into as well too. And I know that
I just fall into it.
It made me feel old yesterday. We sat down with someone who's looking to do an internship with us yesterday. She's 20. And bucketed herself in Gen Z, and I just did the math on that. Like, I'm 33 this year, that's 13 years younger than I, and yeah, it's a completely different demographic. They're doing things completely different to the way that we did. But certainly for millennials, like, we all want purpose, we want more meaning from the work that we do. We put preference on, I think, working conditions and culture and other things as well too, necessarily over a higher paycheck. So I think people are driven in our age category by different things. So as a business, you need to be able to cater to that. Otherwise, you're not going to have a compelling work environment that's going to keep people engaged, motivated, and around. 10 years is a tough thing as well too with millennials. So if you want to keep people around for longer than 2 years, you need to be doing something that really caters to their intrinsic motivations and the things that they're looking from a workplace as well too.
Exactly. And yeah, if you want to keep the best people, you need to be doing all those things.
100%. And like that's the key to being competitive as an agency, right? You need to bring in the best talent possible that you can afford at that time.
I know. I also think, and we can go into this a bit later, but I think there's this correlation within the creative sort of industry or industries when it comes to burnout, depression and that sort of stuff, and that is that relationship between, in order to be creative, you have to be vulnerable, but in order to be vulnerable, you have to have some sort of confidence, and there's this sort of cycle in my mind that is attributed to that. Like if you push out a really strong piece of creative work that gets accepted, which realistically only happens like 10% of the time.
Yeah.
Because we know out of all the work that we do within creative industries, or at least within advertising and marketing, only 10% of the work's going to be accepted most of the time. So you've got to be willing and strong enough and have this sort of resilience to bounce back from, I'm not going to take that work. And that can have a knock-on confidence for a lot of people, and then that starts this vicious cycle of, if you don't have the confidence, then you're not willing to be sort of any more you're not willing to be vulnerable anymore, or as vulnerable, which then impacts your creativity.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's a lot of rejection that's involved within the industry, right, where you're presenting new ideas to the client, and the facts are that not all of them are going to get accepted, and the creatives have poured their heart and soul into bringing that sort of concept that they're quite married to life, to have like a red text to go through it and try again, or we think we're going to go in a different direction. So completely understand and appreciate what you're saying.
I reckon I just think that's quite unique to this sort of industry. What about you in terms of professional career? I know you didn't start off within sort of agency space, but did you want to just quickly go through, I guess, what your professional career looks like to date and how it led to where you are today, and what sort of experiences established the foundation that you've now set here at Farsiight that is looked up to so highly within the industry? Yeah,
for sure. I think my career path has definitely been a non-traditional one,
which is good.
Yeah, I got my start like a lot of people do in hospitality. Both Josh and my parents have always been restaurant owners our whole life, so scrubbing dishes for dad at age 13 was a pretty good gig when a lot of my other friends didn't have jobs. So that's, I guess, where I got my start, and sort of moved into front of house doing, waiting tables and kind of learning a thing or two about customer service there. And I think what I learned from my time, waiting tables is that I really enjoyed dealing with people. Like customer service or sales was something that I thought I could be good at. Our school was very heavy in kind of pushing you directly straight out of school into university. I went straight into a Bachelor of Business. With no real end goal. It's just like, I'm going to be a businessman. And I kind of got
which is so common.
Yeah, 100%. So I got 3 months into that, was lacking the motivation, and ended up dropping out for the first time out of 2 times. I ended up dropping out of that degree. Ended up chasing ski seasons for the better part of 5 years, which was, probably the time of my life. So I spent time locally in the Australian ski fields. I spent time in Canada, a bit of time in Japan, and in Europe as well too. So not exactly career-worthy stuff. But,
where in Canada? Did you go to all of them?
I did 1 season in Big White and 1 season in Whistler. So again, either waiting tables. I worked at a Jersey Shore style t-shirt press company at Whistler. So really odd jobs, but just stuff that was kind of paying for the ski pass and accommodation and beer pretty much. And it's sort of in between that, when I was back home saving up for these trips, I did have a bit of time in corporate as well too. So I figured I was good at customer service and sales. Perhaps I should go try my hand at that. So I worked at some big corporates in insurance, in telco, all of which like super soul-sucking experiences, which really didn't stoke the fire to go back and finish my degree. I figured, you know, if I'm going to go to university for 3 years to come back and do this again, like, what is the point? Yeah, fuck that.
We can't swear, by the way.
Yeah, it just felt like a cog in the wheel. The leadership style was very much top down. Like, you must, you know, like I can give examples of like where I would go to the bathroom for 10 minutes and I'd come back and my manager would be standing at my desk, ask me where I was, and it was like, I took a shit, that's where I was. So just things like that just really rubbed me the wrong way. I think from like an ethics perspective, the way that some of these big businesses are run is just like not customer centric whatsoever. Culture was like a birthday cake that got pulled out once a month. So it wasn't an engaging workplace. The work was dull. So yeah, I guess I had a pretty negative relationship with work. I had no idea what I was going to do because I certainly didn't want to go study and go back at work for one of these big companies.
But in hindsight, that was probably a blessing given where you are now.
Oh,
because
100%.
You know what the fuck you don't want within a business.
And I think in a lot of those experiences as well too, I worked under some terrible bosses. And I worked in some terrible cultures as well too. So it kind of really taught me like what I didn't like and what not to do from like a leadership and culture perspective as well. So I think from that perspective, those experiences were invaluable. Which kind of led me to, I guess, what really got my career started. So I've always had a fascination with tech, and was sort of like from the sidelines, just kind of watching this whole thing grow. And the idea of coming and working for a startup where it was like a meritocracy, you could come in and the job description to a degree would be a little bit blurred because you'd be across a number of functions, and that you could grow with your company was like really, really appealing to me. So I came back from my like last trip that I did in Europe to the ski fields there, dead set on wanting to get a job in tech. And as luck would have it, I landed on my feet. A friend connected me with the guys over at Plant Miner, which were like Airbnb for the construction market. Super early days. I think they just raised a seed check. We were working out of a tin shed in Newstead off plastic desks, mobile phones. It was a bit Wolf of Wall Street. It was a bit like raw and hustle. And yeah, so I started like bottom of the rung as a junior sales rep at the company. And like the culture was awesome. My boss was super inspiring and supportive, and I finally kind of figured like I found what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I just kind of poured myself completely into it and just really grinded and hustled. And as the company grew, I was afforded some really awesome opportunities to move from essentially what was like a junior sales rep into leading the entire sales function for the marketplace part of the business, leading a team of 30. So that was like in a period of a couple of years, I went from, just getting my start to leading a team of 30 people. Didn't really have the experience to do it, but I was learning on the job and I was getting all the support I needed from the leaders above me as well too. So like massive shout out to like Dan Wilson and Michael Trussler, who have been massive supporters of me sort of since day one. So yeah, I owe a lot to those guys and the other people around me at the time that kind of lifted me up. And then in the background, I've always been quite hungry from like a self-learning and development perspective. So what I felt I lacked, I tried to gain through doing a lot of my own learning and development, and kind of reached a ceiling with that and realized I needed to take that next step, and ended up enrolling and doing my MBA, which kind of really helped me, I think, from a perspective of just better critical thinking was one of the key things that degree helped, among with other things now that have been really helpful for Farsiight, like financial modeling and accounting and all that kind of boring but necessary stuff in business. So yeah, Plant Miner was that opportunity that just like propelled my career. And I think in the back of my mind and Josh's as well too, we've always had the idea that we wanted to work for ourselves. Having parents who they only ever work for themselves their whole life, I think that definitely left an imprint on us. So we've had some pretty whack ideas over the years, some businesses that we've launched that failed, some businesses that never launched and never should have gotten launched.
That's all part of the game. But listening to this whole thing, right, you're telling a story in the sense of like your history, I can already see, and I think anyone listening would understand and be able to see that the building blocks have like been put in place over time to eventually allow you to create what you've created here, right? You've had poor experiences within corporate, you had an amazing experience within a startup, which is fast, a lot of hustle, ended up running a team of a lot of people, so developed those sort of leadership skills, which landed you perfectly in a sort of great position to be able to work with Josh and build this beast.
It's definitely been a sum of all parts, and look, we're still learning as we build here as well too. We don't have the answers. I tell the team, somewhat regularly that we're all building this together, and we're building it on the way down. This is the first time that Josh and I have built an agency or a business for that matter. I've obviously had the almost second-hand experience of doing it at Plant Miner and kind of watching those decisions get made by others, but this is the first time that we're kind of in the trenches making those bigger decisions ourselves.
So that whole Steve Jobs thing, like you can't obviously tell the future, but when you look backwards and start to connect the dots, looking backwards, everything starts to make sense.
Yeah, I guess so, for sure.
That's cool. What about you, just quickly, in terms of like personal health and what personal mental health and what that means to you? And I know we've gone through that already, but any experiences that you've had that you're willing to share that can sort of shed some insight into how you've sort of baked some sort of policies and procedures around mental health and mental wellness in here within Farsiight? Yeah,
for sure. I'd say that this is something that's still evolving for us as a business, sort of drawing back to an earlier comment I made here. So I think as a starting point, letting people know, even in the interview process, kind of like where we stand around the topic of mental health, knowing that they're coming into an organisation where they can be open and vulnerable about that's really key. I think to identifying great people, but also people knowing from like day one that this is kind of where we stand on the matter as well too. I'm a big believer, having read more into this now and kind of understanding the topic better. It's like mental health can't just be like that one-off day that you do as a company and pull out some cupcakes once a year, right? It has to be the type of thing that
Are you okay day?
It has to be, and those things are great, right?
It's not
because they bring greater awareness into it. But like if that's kind of like your company's initiative to dealing with mental health in the workplace is a one day a year and a few cupcakes, it's really not really cutting the mustard. So it's about setting, I think, the pace and the framework with the team to know that they can have those conversations any day of the week. And for us, that sort of weekly check-in on a Monday has been really key to being able for people to come in and be vulnerable about how they're actually feeling in their personal lives.
Yeah.
So that's been a really key one for us. When it comes to people needing to take a day off from mental health, like we are absolutely fine as an organisation for people to take days off from mental health, and it has happened and it will continue to support that. So people have leave at the end of the day, be that for sick or what have you, we're more than happy for them to take the time to get themselves right if they're going through something tough at that particular time. Yeah,
awesome. And I think you've answered a question that I've got here, or one or two questions around agency culture. What are, I guess, the two or three key things in your mind that lead, let's just flip it, what in your mind and your experience would be two or three things that lead to poor agency culture?
Yeah.
Just in things that you've seen in other agencies.
Yeah, okay.
In the past.
So we broached this topic a little bit earlier in the podcast, but I think for one, it comes down to the business model, right? So if the agency owners are not scheduling out work in a way that is realistic around the team that they have, and so far as they don't have the system in place, or they have the system in place and they're purposely putting more on their team than what's realistic, that's going to lead to burnout and mental health. So I think it's really understanding your business model, understanding your pricing, so that you can actually make the money that you need without having to char grill your team in order to achieve that profit.
Yeah.
So I think it's really understanding your numbers and your unit economics as a business. I know that sounds a bit nerdy and far removed from mental health.
No.
But if you can understand that and then work backwards from the end result, that's the thing for our team. They've got a very realistic workload, and it still means we can make a great margin.
Yeah.
So we don't need to stack more and more onto them to achieve more revenue. we're very pragmatic about hiring ahead as well too. Like we're carrying more headcount than we need right now because we know that we're going to keep growing at a modest rate over the rest of this year, depending on the market conditions. So rather than overloading the team now until we've got capacity, we've got people in right now that are getting up to speed, learning how we do here, learning our culture, learning our systems, learning our processes, so that when the work continues to come in, we've got people to put in. So it comes down to, yes, making some business decisions around how you run things, I think is really, really key.
So your advice to any sort of new or newer agency owners, or agency owners who are just struggling to find this balance between making money, making payroll, versus looking after their team. One of the key pieces of advice would be that.
And if you don't already, like, see if you can get a financial consultant or an accountant or someone that can provide you that rigor if you don't have it yourself. It's been something that we've sort of had in place since day one, but we, shout out to SBO Consulting. We used Jason and his firm, and they've been really instrumental in helping us build out our financial models well in advance, which include capacity modeling and hiring and things like that as well too, so that it's quite it's formula driven in terms of how we approach hiring, in terms of how many hours we put on our team and all those sorts of things in order for us to, as a business, achieve our commercial goals as well too. But coming back to your initial question, you asked for a couple of different things that I think where I see other agencies go wrong. So that's one of them. I think the other one, and this is so pervasive in our industry, is like lack of care about the brands and clients that they're bringing in. It's like a just bring them in type mentality. And see, the downstream effect that I think a lot of agency owners don't realize from that is like, sure, it's great, you're realizing the revenue, you're bringing more work in for the team. But if the work is shit, if the clients that are not like going to, like that the team are not going to be engaged with in terms of, or inspired by, or they've got unrealistic expectations, or they're assholes and they're just not going to be great people to work with, then you're going to have a team that's coming into work every day and hating what they do. Like bad clients are like bad employees in a sense that they bring culture down. So like you need to safeguard the clients that you bring into the agency as much as you're safeguarding the people, because they interplay.
I think it takes a lot of balls as well. Like I've worked for one or two really like high performing, well regarded agencies, and I think one of the things that made them different was, I remember a PR agency I worked with, one of the clients who was one of the top tier clients within that agency and had been there for about a year and a half, was rude to one of our employees, and then went on to be rude to her, the owner of the business, and she just basically said, fuck you, like, contract's done, see you later. And she made a point to put her agency and her employees and herself ahead
100%
of this client who was paying a lot in retainer. And yeah, what she got back from that I think was huge, because it got a decent amount of PR. But aside from that, within the team, like the culture,
100%. Like we as an agency would honestly be double the size if we'd taken on every opportunity that comes through the door every given month. But the downstream effect of that is like, for one, our reputation wouldn't be as ironclad as it is. If there's one thing like I'm super proud outside of like our people and culture here at Farsiight, it's the reputation in the industry that we're building for doing the most important thing in performance, which is actually delivering the result. But again, that downstream thing that people just don't, I think, or they forget about in our industry as agency owners, is that you bring in shit and uninspiring work, you bring in assholes, your team are going to be unhappy. They're going to burn out and they're going to leave because of that.
It's this cycle. It's this vicious cycle, because if you start the process of bringing in shit clients, you're not going to have a team that's going to hang around for a long time. And
like coming back to what we were saying before, like again, like our workforce, largely millennials are like purpose driven. They want to do work that matters. So, you kind of show up on a Monday and all of a sudden you've got to kick off for this client selling a really crappy product that's not actually generating value in the market. How do you think that's going to make the team feel? Now they've got to invest 20 hours a week into trying to push this shit uphill. It's just, it's a losing game. So it's like we're very, very, very picky on the brands that we bring into the agency for that exact reason.
No, I reckon that's smart. So smart. I guess in terms of people, one of the things when I first met you that stuck with me I loved, one thing you said that I love was you hire for culture over competency. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I'd never heard it before, and I loved it when I heard it, and I thought that's like fucking bang on.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't like claim this was anything that we invented here at Farsiight. And yeah, this was definitely one of the things I took away from my time at Plantmine. I think one thing that we did very well, like this is a very different business to what I was running there. Like my function at Plantmine was predominantly in sales. I was the sales leader. So we were hiring sales guys or sales girls as well too. So we knew that if we hired people that were right for our culture, people that had the right drive and ambition, all those sorts of things, that I could teach them how to sell our product. We had a really great product, it got cut through in the market. So we knew if we brought in the right people, we could produce the result. And the same's to be said here. I think the slight difference is that we are typically hiring for quite technical roles.
Yeah.
And we're also typically hiring for people that are sort of midweight to senior as well too. As a rule of thumb, we don't really bring juniors into the team here at Farsiight at this point. We just don't quite have the, I think, infrastructure to support.
I think you're running so fast as well, you don't have the...
Yeah, exactly. We kind of need people to come in and create impact pretty quickly. So like, yeah, for us here at Farsiight, it's always been like culture first. So like the first part of our interview process is typically a catch up with me via a Zoom call. I'm gauging a bit of understanding on experience, but you can pick that up from LinkedIn, you can pick that up from a resume. So I already know kind of what someone's experience is coming into the call and whether they tick that box. I'm really just trying to figure out whether from like a cultural perspective, they're saying the right type of things and I'm picking up the right sort of vibe that they're going to come in here and really add to our culture. I've really tried to stop saying like fit in because we're not looking for like a mold of a person. And yeah, if you spend some time getting to know our team here, you'd understand that like we do not have like the same person. Like we have a collective of very, very different people here, which is what I think makes Farsiight the
And that's
awesome.
what makes a culture.
100%.
If everyone's all the same, it sort of almost becomes a cult.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like culture is so, you know, culture commonly gets mistaken for the beers you have on a Friday, the foosball table or those sorts of things, but that's not culture, they're kind of perks of the job. Culture is like, as an organisation, what are the things that you truly believe in? Like when you do the work together, how do you conduct that? So they're the sort of things that we're trying to understand early on in the process, whether someone is going to I guess, to walk the way we walk here at Farsiight and approach things we do and have the same traits that we're looking for in people from a cultural perspective.
And I don't want you to give away any secret sauce, but what are those things when you're on that first Zoom call that you look for when you're sort of first interviewing someone, just to give people insight into, I guess, you know, what an agency owner is looking for when they bring people into a culture that is incredibly healthy and vibrant and has quite a sort of mixed diaspora, I guess.
Yeah. So I think like one thing that comes straight to mind is like growth mindset's massive. So we're in an industry that's constantly changing. No 2 weeks are the same here at Farsiight in terms of the work that people will be doing. And the specialties that we're hiring for, like the platforms, are constantly changing as well too. So for people to be really effective and good in our industry, they need to be on the ball in their own time outside of work as well too, trying to keep up with what's going on. But not only that, like we're a growing organisation as well too, which I'm like very open with our team that puts more stress on them than it would if we were just to stay and maintain the status quo. You know, we're constantly evolving, we're changing our processes, we're bringing in new people, we're moving offices. All of this is like change, and change creates stress, right? So unless we're bringing in people who kind of have that growth mindset and are wanting to be a part of that.
And are excited by change.
And excited by change as well too. Like if you're just kind of looking to come in and sit at the same desk and do the same work forever and a day, then you're probably going to find our culture to be quite abrasive and it's not going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
You know, the next thing that will come to mind is like, and this kind of comes back to like, we've got people from all walks of life here at Farsiight. The one thing we put a huge amount of value on is inclusivity. So really making sure that we're hiring people that understand that, they understand the importance of that in the workplace. Because like one of the few rules that we have here is just like respect, is like treating people the same way that you would like to be in the workplace.
And is that what inclusivity means to you? Like what is the definition of sort of inclusivity to you within this space?
Yeah, so I think inclusivity, it's a topic that because I've seen people describe it other ways in LinkedIn, which has evolved my way of thinking as well too. So I think we have a way to come until we are what I would consider a truly inclusive organisation by the definition. But inclusivity to me means that we are non-biased in terms of the way that we hire and bring people in. It's really the best person for the job. So that means like age, gender, sexuality, all of those things is like there's no confirmation bias whatsoever around that. And then on the back end, when we do bring people into the office, is like having a workspace where people can come in and actually be themselves, not kind of put the work face on every day as they walk into Farsiight, and know that they'll be valued here, know that they'll be respected, and all those sorts of things as well too. So like that's kind of like my current thinking on inclusivity. But I know to really kind of meet the needs of the market and what, to call yourself an inclusive organisation, we've still got a bit of work to do there as well.
Yeah, but you're definitely, I think, leagues ahead of most other agencies out there, I'd say. So when you and Josh, your brother, I don't think I mentioned that at the start.
Yeah, you did say I'm the founder of Farsiight, and probably want to jump in and correct that. Josh is actually,
yes.
He's the founder. He got the business off the ground before I actually even started with him. The business in its initial iteration was him freelancing. I think the business was actually called the Ad Lad. For those who are listening, so the Ad Lad. So that was just Josh. He had kind of built up a bit of disdain for the industry from his own experiences, and decided to kind of take back control over the type of clients he worked with, what he said to them, the expectations, all those sorts of things we've talked about. Why I think what we're doing here at Farsiight. Josh was the initial iteration of that, so it was just him as a freelancer. So he was the founder of Farsiight.
I should have got both you guys in my bad.
I swooped in at sort of 1.5 years into that to really help take what he'd built and turn it into an agency.
Yeah, and so I guess a lot of the experiences that Josh had, and obviously you had combined, resulted in these sort of cultural rules or ethos, or this cultural ethos that you brought into Farsiight to begin with. Can you remember what the first couple were? Or have we talked through quite a few of them already?
I think we've talked through them.
Have they evolved over time?
Yeah, so I think one of the first conversations when we were had truly made our minds up that we were going to go into business.
I want to know when you guys are sitting together, we're going to do a business, and this is how it's going to be different to everyone else out there in terms of culture and.
Yeah, I think almost selfishly we created the culture that we wanted to work in, right? So we kind of took stock of the things that we'd really enjoyed in workplaces before, the things that we hated, and then constructed our kind of dream workplace working backwards from both of those points. Not necessarily a cultural thing, but I guess it is in a way. We're really big on workplace flexibility here, which is pretty much, I think, table stakes now with what's happened at COVID, but we were doing it from day one, where we offered our team flexible working hours. We were offering the team opportunity to work from home, again, before COVID had even hit. This was in 2019. So we had really enjoyed times in our professional career where we got to do that, and I always hated in my professional career when 9 o'clock you got to be at your desk, and if you were late by 5 minutes, you were that just didn't. I just don't understand it. Well, it's still that still exists out there. So for us here at Farsiight, you're never late unless there's a meeting. People can cut up their hours in a given week how they want. We're outcome focused at the end of the day. People have tasks and hours that they need to complete for our brands, and it's very important that we're doing that at the highest level of execution. But we've got mums who want to do the school drop off in the morning. We've got Lachlan, who's a powerlifter, who I think lifts during his lunch break. So we've got people that like to cut up their days in different ways that suits their lives, which I then think gives them, whether it's we're talking a lot about mental health today. Going out and having a run or doing gym at lunch is really good for your mental health. And cutting up your week in a way where you can do the things outside of work that fill your cup up, really good for your mental health. So there's been things like that we've kind of architected from the start, just based on what we wanted.
Your own experiences.
And I guess because we're millennials as well too, it just turns out that a lot of the things that we were wanting from a workplace, so did the market as well too. And I guess we're not resting on our laurels either. We're really trying to challenge that every year. We're thinking about new things that we can bring to the table to, I guess, strengthen what we're offering to the market.
Just on the flip side of that, what do you look out for, or what sort of warning signs do you see in employees who you feel may be burning out, or maybe sort of slipping down a sort of downward slope to a degree? Are there signs that are like universal, or is it something that's unique to everyone, and then you just have to always sort of keep an eye on everyone and be like, okay, someone's a little bit off here.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? Like, how do you work with that person to A, understand, are they okay? And then B, say if they're not, like, what's the process there? And this may be a bit of a harder question, but if someone isn't opening up as much as you know they need to, in order for you to get, it's not the best out of them, but
I understand what you're saying, because it is like a tough line where, like, we want to encourage our team that they can be open and share with us, but sometimes problems with mental health or things outside of work that are quite personal and that you might not feel comfortable sharing, which we need to respect as well too. But yeah, coming back to what you, like the initial question of like, how do we keep a pulse on things? I think in the earlier stages, it was quite easy for us. We were all working in an office that was like literally the size of this space here. So it's pretty easy when you're that close quarters to understand if someone's just not quite there themselves. And I think probably up until like last year as well too, when the team was like sort of 10, 15 people, it was pretty easy for me. I feel like I get a good read on people. So it's pretty easy for me to notice that, hey, so-and-so's not looking herself today. I should probably just hit her up in Slack or see if we can go out and have a coffee and just kind of find out what's going on. As we've scaled as an organisation, we've got a team of 25 now. It's like there's weeks that go by now where I might not get to say good day to every single person in the office, which sucks, to be honest. But I think
that's
it's by and by of growing the team. But I think what's really enabled me to keep connected with how people are feeling, be able to jump on those instances where people might be burning out or there might be something going on that needs to be talked about, is that check-in we have on a Monday. Because even if it's like we've changed up the format of the way we do it now, so we do it in like little pods of it within the agency, so like 4 different groups which change every month, so you get to interact with different people. But
that's smart, so you're not having to sort of divulge how you're feeling personally in front of the entire agency.
Correct, it's just in a smaller group of people, but like, if someone's giving themselves a low rating on a personal level and I'm not involved in that chat, I hear about it pretty quickly. And like, I think the even better thing that like I hear about that's happening on the floor is like someone gives himself a low score and they've got like the whole team just reaching out being like, hey, I heard you're having a bit of a tough week, just want to let you know that we're here for you and I hope you're okay. Like, that's freaking awesome. But yeah, having that small little process in place where people can check in, I think it's just been really...
I think that's a huge process.
Yeah.
The process is small, but the impact is huge.
Yeah, 100%. So that's been like really critical to kind of just keeping a feel on how people are feeling about work, how people are feeling about personal on a week-to-week basis and how that changes. And how things or decisions that Josh and I might be making from the top are impacting the team further down. Because again, we're a growing company, we're making some punts in terms of like new R&D and initiatives and things that we're doing, or we're bringing new employees in that might have a negative impact on culture. Thank goodness that hasn't happened yet. But as you're growing and you're doing things differently, that again puts stress on people. So it's like good to understand like what's the correlation between what we're doing as an organisation, the work we're doing, and how that's affecting everyone on a personal level as well too.
I reckon that pod scenario of just breaking things up into smaller groups is super smart.
Yeah, and just to provide context again, for the people that are listening, it's like a quick stand-up, no longer than 10 to 15 minutes, where everyone goes around the circle, rates how they're feeling from 1 to 10 on a personal level, on how they're feeling about work at the moment as well too, 1 to 10. And then we typically throw like a random question in there, like what made you smile in the last week, or what are you working on at the moment? What did you do on the weekend? Just to kind of keep a pulse on what everyone's up to personally as well too. So short and simple, it's not War and Peace, but I think it's really valuable for everyone to connect with everyone else in the agency as a starting point on a Monday. And for those to sort of checks on mental health too.
And just really quickly, I'm curious, like I know the hiring process you have and the people you have in here are amazing, so this may not be as relevant, but when you do have issues with either a certain staff member or staff members interacting with one another, because it happens, right?
Yeah, 100%.
People don't get along. How do you deal with that here, or how do you and Josh deal with that here, in a way that is sort of constructive and healthy and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I think we've been lucky enough so far in our journey in Farsiight where we haven't had to move anyone on from the agency for cultural reasons, but I make it very clear to our entire team, like if someone is clashing culturally, it doesn't matter if they are God's gift to PPC marketing or God's gift to creative or whatever it might be, no one is talented enough to kind of compromise our culture here, because that's, you know, one of our parts of our secret sauce at the end of the day. So yeah, very fortunate that we haven't had to deal with that. I'm sure at some point in time it's inevitable that we might make, you know, Josh and I aren't perfect and we're going to make a bad call at some point in time on a hire. But yeah, we've got such a good network of our team. Like when we bring someone new into the team, I will do a pulse check at 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week with key people I know within the agency on how's so-and-so going, how they're fitting in, how do you feel about them culturally. So again, I'm kind of getting that intel back that if there's a problem, I'm hearing about it from the people on the ground so that then I can go and act on it quite quickly if necessary.
Yeah, so you're sort of catching, like you say, the pulse of everything.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to think that I can catch it before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get in front of it. In terms of the perks, I hate the word perks, so sorry for saying that, but
yeah,
you put a post up on LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, outlining what Farsiight does in terms of employee benefits.
Yeah.
I guess perks.
Yeah, I guess they're benefits or perks. They kind of fall into that bucket.
Do you want to just quickly run through like what those are and sort of how those came about and why you feel that they're sort of really beneficial?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it would definitely fall into perks, and we've talked about it already, but flexible working environment is a key one.
Yeah.
And for obvious reasons, just giving people the ability to do the things that they like outside of work around their schedule, I think is really, really important to having like a full cup and enjoying the work that you do. You know, kind of feeding back into that whole personal growth thing. This is a new initiative that we've rolled out this year, which is providing everyone with a fund of $1,000 that they can dip in personally to go to conferences, to download courses. Jess, our people and culture manager, is actually enrolled in a diploma of HR at TAFE, which we're part funding as well too. So things like that are going to generally push them within their career.
So every employee gets $1,000 to spend on themselves to improve themselves.
Yeah, 100%. So
I'd love to know how many other agencies do that. That's amazing.
That's something we're really excited about. We had our 2 designers at the design conference for a couple of days. I think it was last week or the week before, and they just came back like super buzzed about the whole thing and kind of inspired to come in and do greater work, which is, you know, ultimately if we're going to invest that sort of money, that's the result we want to see. So yeah. Outside of that, from like a mental health perspective, everyone gets a free subscription to Headspace, which is like a meditation app.
Which I use every day, which is great.
Yeah, I've tried a few of them. I've tried Sam Harris's one, which is, I think, it was okay. But I think Headspace is just really user-friendly from like, without going too deep into the art of meditation. It's pretty easy to pick up one of their meditations after you've had a long, stressful day or in the morning or when you need it, and kind of just dive in and kind of get that mental space that you can get from taking 5 minutes of doing some proper breathing and whatnot. So
I think it breaks down the process of meditation very, very well.
Yeah. Give people a day off on their birthday, because I think one of the sad things is you become an adult and you go to work is like you wake up and you go to work on your birthday and it's just kind of like any other day of your life. So, you know, birthdays are special. So we give everyone a day off on their birthday that's on top of their regular leave that they get. So it's a fully paid day off.
Yeah.
We have Farsiight Fridays. The name somewhat stolen from my previous employer who I think did Felix Fridays. So shout out to the guys over at Felix. But the initiative is a half day every month on a Friday. One Friday the team can just go and have a half day and do what they will, and then the other half day we typically put in some form of like a team building exercise. So not this Friday, but next Friday we're heading out for strike bowling, kind of like a Stranger Things dress up theme. So keep an eye on our socials. There should be some pretty good stuff coming.
What's the coolest one you've done so far?
Ooh, coolest one we've done so far. I think last month we had our move-in party for this office, which was a lot of fun. So kind of cut the ribbon and everyone's kind of let their hair down. So that was a lot of fun. In terms of getting out the office, I think probably it was when we were a smaller team. We got everyone into like a minivan that I rented. We went up to one of the national parks and just did a bushwalk for a half day, which was a lot of fun. So that was fun just to kind of get everyone out in nature and do something very, very different from our day to day.
Yeah.
We need a much bigger bus to do that these days.
No, that's cool. We sort of talked about it already to a degree, but the last couple of questions, because I know we're coming to time, is and this is something that's pretty dear to me as well, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how do you bake things like vulnerability we've sort of talked about with the talks and stuff like that, but how do you bake confidence into an agency culture, and how do you sort of bake creativity into an agency culture as well? More so the confidence thing, I think, though.
I think the key way to bake confidence into a culture within an agency is making sure that you're creating an environment and a culture that supports failure. Because if you think about the type of work that we do, to your earlier point that majority of creative ideas don't make to see the light of day. The same can be said about performance strategies. Like, we're trying new, bold things that are most likely, like, statistically not going to work.
Yes.
To find that one golden vein that will.
Yes.
It reminds me a lot of like sales, right? Like, sales is one of those. It's also a high burnout career because like you literally spend 95% of your time losing every day. You go out and you lose every day to get that like one call that then turns into a deal. And you may only get 3 of those a month out of all the work that you do. So you spend this fraction of your time actually winning as opposed to losing. And I think there's similar sorts of things to be said in what we do in marketing. Like, there's obviously the baseline BAU stuff, which we know that works, but the type of brands that we work with are high growth. They're looking for us to bring new, bold ideas to the table. And majority of them are going to flunk. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
So being able to create an environment and a culture that supports people to be bold, to try new things and to fail without judgment, I think is a thing that builds confidence up. Because on the flip side, if it was the reverse where you're getting scolded or when things go wrong, you've got the pressure coming down on you, then that's really not going to cultivate the confidence to go and try new things again and again and again.
I think I wrote a post and poorly tried to articulate this idea of open failure that someone had written about or had wrote about a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
That I read, and it talks to that fact that agencies or businesses that have leaders who are willing to openly fail in front of their employees and their workforce, sort of instantly that filters down and gives their employees the confidence to also fail and explain why things failed. And that is the thing that breeds confidence, breeds creativity, breeds sort of vulnerability to be able to step out of that comfort zone and try new things.
Yeah, I mean, that's been key for us. Like, Josh and I have always wanted to be super transparent as leaders of this business. So when shit hits the fan, we make a bad decision or things go wrong, which all of that has happened in the last 4 years. Our approach is, as soon as it makes sense and as soon as possible, to get up in front of the team, stand up and say, hey, look, this is exactly what's happened. Here's how we got to that point. This was completely our fault, and here's what we're doing to fix it. Yeah. I've been in environments and organizations where like that sort of stuff's completely shielded. You kind of get the back end of it without the context, and it kind of leads to confusion. You don't really feel like you're a part of it. So yeah, we've always tried to lead from day one with like complete transparency wherever possible with our team around like decisions and fuck ups that are happening within the agency.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I guess last question, or 2 questions, like what's your hope for the advertising and marketing industry in the next 5 years with regards to mental health and mental wellness? And then the second one would be, like, what's the next sort of 5 years look like for Farsiight?
Yeah, it's a good question and a loaded one. I hope as we continue to build our brand and market. Like we're starting to chip away at it. And shout out to Mallory, who's filming us right now, has been doing a great job at helping us with that. We're starting to chip away at building our brand. So I'm hoping that once we build our brand in the market and we get to the level of recognition that I believe that we're going to in the next 3 to 5 years, that we can use our influence as a brand not only for commercial purposes, but for initiatives like broadening the conversation around mental health and the advertising agency industry, and other things that we're really, really passionate about as well too. So kind of using that brand presence that we have in the market for obviously commercial purposes, but for good as well too. So I guess that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, and I think you guys are already there. Like the things you put on LinkedIn around like the things that you're putting in place for your employees get really well received, or very well received. So
yeah, I think what's going to get us there is just like being unapologetically authentic about who we are as a business, and we're really trying to do that in all the comms and any of the video content that we're putting out. We're really not trying to put a glaze over it. Like, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is kind of what you're buying into with Farsiight.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely going to help kind of steer that change. Yeah, and then your last question, next 5 years, that's a long time for a business that's been in business for, 3.5 years.
What about 3 years?
Yeah.
I understand. I know how fast you guys are growing, so 5 years is probably unfair.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, hey, because if you'd asked Josh and I this question when we started Farsiight, like we've always been really ambitious, the both of us. But like I think the only goal that we had for this business when we started was really just to work for ourselves and kind of take that control and be entrepreneurs. But as the business has grown and evolved, I think our mindset has shifted in terms of what we think is possible from this. Like we want to get after it. We want to be known as market leaders for what we're doing. And I think that we're on the path to do that in the next 3 years. We're making some really big moves right now on the creative front. Our traditional bread and butter has always been performance. That's Josh's background. We've been playing in the creative game now for a couple of years, but we're making some really big moves that's going to, I think, put Farsiight very quickly in the limelight, both locally here in Brisbane and across the nation in terms of what we're doing for our brands creatively. So
cool. So there is that sort of appetite to potentially have offices outside of Brisbane or work within Brisbane at a core office?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter after COVID, right? Fuck.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Clients are like, don't care where you are so long as you're going to do the job.
Yeah, I'd say like, I wouldn't know the stat off the top of my head, but like our clients are completely distributed all across Australia, and we've got some clients in North America as well too. So I think one thing that's been awesome for us as agencies is the way that work has changed, has very much matched the way that we interact with clients. So a lot of brands now have people that are working from home a lot of the time. A lot of brands are dealing with their team via Slack, which is how we communicate with our brands. So we're feeling more and more like we're integrating into part of the team as opposed to this outsourced third party.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, not at all, man. I just want to say thanks so much I feel very honoured and probably, a bit out of my place to be here on the very first of this podcast series, which is no doubt going to take flight. So, very much appreciate you having me on and kind of hearing a bit of my ramblings on the topic.
Oh, you know how much I chased you. I chased Ben for a decent couple of weeks to get here because, I think what you guys are doing here and the culture you're set up and the way you're building this business is, like I said at the very start, I think you guys are at sort of the tip of the spear, so to speak, in terms of this newer agency guard sort of coming through. That's very different to what we've had in the past, and that is an agency that cares deeply about their employees and their mental health and mental wellness, and I think that's going to be something that becomes more and more prevalent over time, and you guys are at the forefront of that.
I guess all I'd want to say in closing is it's not just Josh and I. Like, we're obviously the founders and the leaders of the business, but Farsight's very much a sum of all parts, and the culture that we have is a result of the people that we have. the results that we're producing as an agency.
You hired those people.
Yeah, for sure. We were the gatekeeper, so to speak. But yeah, we're a sum of all parts here, and I truly believe the things that we're doing and that we're doing differently, and the results we're producing is categorically because of the people that we have here.
Yeah. And are you running the glass half full or not?
I knew this question was going to come up.
I don't even know if I'm going to run it.
No,
So glass
no.
half full is like me and Ben trail run quite a bit.
I used to trail run a bit. I'm back in training now. No, so I'm not going to make it for the glass half full. I'm like building load up at the moment. I think I'm going to clock about 45 Ks this week. Heading out to Inaugural on Saturday with a mate to do 10, one lap around the lake, which would be good. So no, I'm training for the Coastal High 50, which is first week of September, which is dangerously close. That'll be my first ultra, first 50K. So I've said it now on the podcast, so there's no backing out.
There you go. It's been done.
So yeah, pumped on that. Pumped to break myself down and rebuild myself at about K45.
Oh, they're so much fun. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. And yeah, super excited to see, or just continue to see what you guys do in the future and how you grow and all the amazing things you're going to do.
Thanks,
so
man. Much appreciated.
We're done.
Oh, good.
How long was that?
Did you do a closing or anything? It was about an hour. It was 3 20-minute little sections.
I don't know what a closing would be.
That's okay. I was just wondering if you wanted to like.
I'll get a photo if
You
that's
can
all
always
right.
do it after the fact too. You know how like you go cool speaking to a mic and put out the end of your podcast. Do you like to use it?
Share, like, comment,
Yeah,
all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we can totally get a picture. Do you want to like both sitting at the table kind of thing, or?
We could just both stand awkwardly there together.
Yeah.
That's
Even
okay.
better.